Hi there, my name is Alyssa Delana, and I will be completing the productive and counterproductive behaviors in a workplace assignment. And so the first question asks us, how have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of an event and the resulting outcome. So to start, the text lets us know that psychology has been studied for more than 100 years, a little bit over 100 years, and the chart in our textbook provides us with a timeline and chronological order of the influences of research in organizational psychology. And so one of the most recent researches based off of events that I found through a chart in the textbook was the consequences of 9/11. And so with that, it allowed organizations to create emergency plans that just allows their organization to be more prepared. If there's an emergency that takes place, and 9/11 was an event that allowed for more research to take place and more organizations to take those precautions more seriously. And because of that, it states in the text that if emergency plans were not in order through organizations, that on 9/11 there would have been an increase of death tolls. And so from 2010 to now, there has been greater focus on retirement processes, emergency preparedness plans, increase in technology and communication, continued research in the unemployment and job security area, and along with an increase in globalization. So there's a lot that's taken place in the last 12 years that has allowed for continued research in organizational psychology that has bettered many of these organizations. And so the second question says, describe the socialization process of 4 graduate students in your program. Is the program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? And I have to say, first off, to define socialization, it's the process of an outsider becoming an insider within the organization. And unfortunately, this is only like my 4th class in my graduate program degree, so I don't really have an accurate opinion on whether or not that my program is going to prepare me successfully and socialize me to whatever's next for me after this once I graduate. However, I think that courses do a great job at allowing students to welcome themselves within a course and meet their classmates and the professor. And so I think that's a good way to socialize students. And along with that, they do a great job at just providing the necessary information for students to succeed in that course. And so usually you get a bunch of information in the beginning, you get to go over your syllabus, timelines, all of that information, if work is late, all of that. So it's super helpful to socialize and whatnot. The next one is number 3, how can an organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? And that discussion board got me fired up because I've seen this happen in my own life through my own career path, and how if you do not have boundaries with work and home, a lot of that extra stuff in your life outside of work can easily leak in to your professional life. And I've noticed that a lot, and I'll mention a little bit more of that once we get down to the 5th question. But all that to say, I think that organizations can do a better job at just providing trainings or just an ebook or just anything like that to provide necessary and useful information for people who might be struggling with balancing a work life and their home life, and how those things can sometimes intersect, unfortunately. And so I think if employees have the right resources for them to succeed, they'll utilize them to their benefit, because obviously no one wants to bring their work home, and no one wants to bring their family life to work. And so I think if people just understand boundaries, time management, things like that, and like a boundary could simply be to not use your work phone, or if someone from work texts you, you just don't respond. And obviously that's hard, and people have like very large expectations of you, especially depending on what the role in the organization is for that employee. It could be a very high stress role. But I think having those proper boundaries is crucial to succeed in your career and that job and that role and with the organization, and even just stress and all of that in your life. The fourth question says, imagine you have been asked to develop a performance assessment program for employee development. What techniques could you use to adequately evaluate employee performance as comprehensively as possible? And so it said, think of Murphy's List. And so Murphy's List gives us 8 ways we can measure job performance. And some of those are pen and pencil test, job skill test, on-site hands-on testing, off-site hands-on testing, high-fidelity simulations, task ratings, symbolic simulations, and global ratings. And so if I was developing a performance assessment program, I think I would highly focus on those hands-on testings, whether that's on-site or off-site. But I do think that you can see very clearly someone's skill level based off of watching them complete a task that would typically be done in a day-to-day role in that career, whatever that looks like. And so if that's someone who's in marketing, like, show me maybe how you organize your Instagram, like what does your week look like, how is that all set up, or just show me what the Instagram looks like. Is there any like new engagement or higher engagement, like what brought you to get more engagement? So kind of just like diving into either work that's already been completed, or even I know for me, if I've ever been on Indeed, sometimes when you're applying for a job, they'll ask you right then and there to take a job assessment, and that gets sent off along with your resume. And so I also mentioned that I think that another great performance measurement could be those job skill tests. I think that could show a lot. And the last question is, what are some possible common organizational constraints? How could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? And so I did a little research, and some common organization constraints can be just lack of knowledge. They might not have as much knowledge. Time, might have too many projects, not enough time, not enough employees, not enough assets, resources. That could cause a lot of stress on employees if they don't have, enough time in their day to complete this, or they don't have the resources and the budget for things that they may need to complete a task or project. Sorry. And some of those counterproductive behaviors can include lateness, absence, rudeness, violence, theft, sabotage, sexual harassment, drug and alcohol abuse. And as you heard, like lateness, absence, rudeness, like, all right, like obviously those are behaviors we don't want in our organizations. However, they're not as intense or harmful as, behaviors such as violence, theft, sabotage, alcohol abuse, sexual harassment, all of those things. And so I think based off knowing organization constraints, knowing that people also struggle with boundaries with work and family, those two things can result in counterproductive behaviors. And so I think it all comes down to stress. And if employees aren't managing their stress well, I think those counterproductive behaviors will come out in some type of way. And I think for me, I mentioned this previously in the video, but I know for me, I worked at a church, and great church, great organization, but the specific team I worked on was very fast-paced. Everything was like done in excellence, many events. We worked with a lot of high end people in our cities, and it was just a not your typical like church role. Like we were not in the four walls of the church. We were always outside, always planning, always trying to do more and more and more. And there was always a lot of like pressure and stress on our team. And luckily, like we had a lot of resources, and like thank God for that. But I know that managing school and my family life, I would sometimes come to work, and I would maybe be a little bit more mean to a colleague if I, had a rough night. I was frustrated with some things, you know, just normal life things. And I think that those counterproductive behaviors obviously result in um, just more harm for yourself as an employee and just even your team members. And it puts your boss also in a tough predicament. And so I think if organizations just helped their employees manage stress, because I think that could be the root of a lot of these things, that they would possibly be in a better place. But that's that. So thank you so much. I hope this was educational and it was accurate. So thanks so much.